Yo, BJ GADDOUR with the BJ GADDOUR podcast, also known as Uncle Baby Biscuits. Woo! This was maybe my favorite gift for Christmas this past season. And coming from Brazil, we have a guest from Brazil. She's in Brazil. Naomi Nazario. Hello, welcome to the show.
Definitely not Brazil. I'm coming from down the hall. What I love too is he was like, because we're in different rooms, so we can kind of hear each other in the background. And he was trying to get me to move to the furthest room, which is too cold. And I was like, absolutely not. And he's like, just try not to speak so loud. And then he presses play and you're just like the loudest I've ever heard you.
Yeah, I know. What am I going to do? He's 40. Yeah, 41 actually. And you just turned 40. Congratulations. You know what's crazy too? I just buttered myself up with BJ's body butter. Guys, this is a real product. By the way, I mean, like, I know we sell it. I don't know if we sell it anymore. That's how good I'm at my business. I don't even know what we sell anymore.
I think we're low in stock. I probably have to order some more.
This is the best lotion.
It's really good.
Regardless, on today's show, while I'm buttering up for the audience here,
you're glowing.
I know I am. That's what I'm saying. My wife and I are going to discuss. We're going to kick it off with some productivity tips. Both Naomi and I run our own businesses. We collectively run businesses together, entrepreneurs working from home. And so we have a lot of things that we can share, especially because for a vast majority of our entrepreneurial lives, we have been winging it. Okay. I don't know how we've managed to get here to this point. Naomi is the host of the very successful, much more successful than my podcast, to be honest, The Twisted Mirror, iTunes, Spotify. She'll be coming to YouTube soon too. So we'll be excited about that. We're also going to be talking mainly about the main episode today is about the trending Netflix series, You Are What You Eat. Beyond the fact that this is more of a fitness podcast, this is in the eyes right now, New Year's resolutions. And Naomi is going through her own personal journey right now when it comes to diet and overall health scares. So I thought it'd be great to bring her on. And, I guess before we get into this fully, do you want to kind of tease what we're going to talk about today a little bit? Before I want to start with productivity tips, and then they can wait to hear more about the series.
Sure. So I actually, just a heads up, I do have a YouTube channel, but it's kind of like dormant. But if you want to hop on there, so when I drop the good shit, am I allowed to say that? Is YouTube going to penalize us?
You just want to avoid the F-bomb,
okay,
early in the episode. Yeah.
You want to see the good poop. When it drops, you'll already be there. The good poop.
That good poop.
And it's funny because I think when you're talking about the productivity stuff, it's often that like you don't want to get advice from people that are naturally good at things. It's effortless to them.
No.
It's antithetical to everything in my bones and my cells is organizing. Okay, is being productive.
Real quick, I just have to say, why our dog, our dog, Molly, okay? Molly, aka Cujo. Did you hear her drinking water? She never drinks water. Anytime I start a podcast, she comes and drinks water right next to my recording.
I think she's accidentally classically conditioned now to drink water once you start the podcast. But I didn't hear her, if that makes you feel any better.
And now she just slinks back. She's on 2 heating pads right now.
She lives in luxury.
She's looking at me right now like, what's going on?
She knows you're talking about her. You said her name.
She knows what's going on. She wants to walk too, but I'm just
why would you say that? You're going to stimulate her. She's going to get up.
Why are we doing all this work? And our dog just drinks water during our podcast and it goes and lays on a heating pad. Well, I'm by the way, I'm freezing in my apron, my apron.
Yeah. And then judges us. We're doing the thing we do every winter where because we live in Southern California, we refuse to turn on the heat which is probably coming soon, the day I just snap. And I lose all discipline and I turn on the heat. But we've been managing. It's been warmer this summer compared to, winter compared to last. So this week we've had a cold snap. The house is colder than it is outside at this point.
Can I ask you a question? It's a little personal. It's a little personal.
Okay.
What's it like to be with a real man? I mean, look at this. By the way, she gets to look at this. I wear this when I do dishes. This is actually where this came from. I think I said it to you, right? Like for a Christmas gift, I was like, you know what? You got to get me an apron that has the name Uncle Baby Biscuits on it. And then I'll be more motivated to do the dishes on a regular basis.
Well,
And
that
now
was the funny part. The funny part is that you looked me in the eye and said, for my stocking stuffer, because the whole thing is we're not big into like, our whole life we're doing things that we enjoy. We try to make it not just a special occasion thing. So we're not actually big on gift giving during the holidays. So I was like, let's do stocking stuffer for fun, but nothing extravagant, you know, small, thoughtful gifts. And at one point he looked me in the eye and said, I want this. I want the apron with Uncle Baby Biscuits. But then when he was shocked, like he totally forgot he had asked me. And it was so funny because I was just like, you looked me in the eye and you specifically asked me for this gift. It was so easy to get. But he was completely shocked when he pulled it out. Completely forgot he had said that to me.
I mean, it's
you look almost naked. There are shorts there, people.
Yeah, there are.
Don't call the police.
Look at this. This is actually this is how I'm going to the grocery store today, by the way, to pick up some goods. It's a very flattering cut.
It's nice, and I think you look good in yellow, and you know the Kill Bill Bruce Lee colors, matching the TRX in the back.
Yeah, I mean everything's color coded here. But do you find joy in when you see when you see a man doing the dishes wearing this, or is it just my joy?
Yeah, no, I'm very grateful that you chip into the housework. That is the real man shit. It's not the beef is nice. I like a beefy man. You got the beard. You're very, typically masculine. That's wonderful. But you throw that in the kitchen.
Ooh.
That's what really, sets it off and popping.
That's what butters your biscuits?
My biscuit.
Biscuit. Well, look, we're going to talk about people are like, I hate these people.
I'm like, please don't turn on the comments for this one on YouTube, please.
Well, you know what's funny? You told me it's like, just look at the comment, look at every comment, especially the negative one is just money. And I was like, oh, okay.
I know, because I know how to unlock, when you know someone so well, I know how your brain works. And people are, particularly hostile on YouTube. And I'm better at like letting things roll off my back, you could say. Yeah. I don't put myself out there as much, so it's possibly easier for me to do that. But I'm kind of good at like turning off. But I was like, how can I help BJ reframe this in a way that, he doesn't see it. He takes the insult and he converts it, right? Because there's no bigger F you than thinking like, okay, this douchebag just helped my engagement. They probably helped me earn 0.03 cents or whatever on YouTube. And suddenly you're like, I'm like, listen, if you're going to insult me, at least pay me to insult me, right? So that's kind of how it is, right? It's like, okay, you give me a coin and you can call me whatever you want. Suddenly it doesn't seem so bad. It's like, I was telling him, it was like those memes where it's like, would you shoot your brother in the foot for like $10 million or whatever? And it's like, bring him. I'll throw him a half. I'll throw him half and I'll shoot him in the foot. Okay. It's like that. He wouldn't mind.
In the way, like to simplify our business model up until this point, I'm the coin. I collect the coins and you're the master of the coins.
Yeah.
But now you're collecting your own coins, which is very exciting because I've been always, don't forget. What I'm just saying, but that's
no. I do. Yeah. You're definitely the face of some of the bigger businesses that we have.
Which is why we struggle so much. Yeah. Look, you look at both of us and you see chaos. And you're right, because up until, it's so funny, I've told people this like over the last year, because, this is a new year. People are trying to do whatever they've never been able to do before for the first time. All right. Whether it's lose weight, make more money, divorce their wife, whatever it is that you're looking to do this year. You've got big goals and hopefully you can achieve them. And let's take advantage of whatever momentum or motivation you might have. Or again, like it's the small window of the year people are actually open to change. And up until last year, this shocks people because, like as much as we joke about ourselves, we've accomplished a fair amount in our lives, all things considered, and I have never scheduled or planned out my work for 20 plus years until this past year and doing it like I've got my plan. By the way, you got this for me and you can just see like this thing is full of stuff. And I've never done this. Like literally it was in my head and I would just make sure I got as much of what was in my head as possible, scatterbrained. I would call it just in a constant state of survival. And with the planner, I've actually now entered a state of what I would call thrival.
Thrival. I like to call the previous way bone on bone. Like we just ran bone on bone. It was just like there was no padding. Right?
Our approach to business was arthritis.
Yeah, you're just on fire all the time. And I think what's interesting, the reason I gave you the planners the year before I took organization seriously, because for several reasons, but the thing is, as things got more successful and they grew, so that's the thing, you can wing it when you start because you don't have as much on your plate. But then as things start to grow, it starts to get to a point where I was just getting like severe anxiety just to open the email, because there's just so many things spinning in my head at once. And I was just like, I can't keep up like this. And so what I learned, and I think what happens to a lot of people, is that to manage your time and to be organized, and even the word productivity, sometimes it's a good word, but I think it's kind of like become toxic in our society, because to me, being productive is also making time for yourself, but we don't often see it that way. But in any case, it's a skill. And I think many people, especially people who are good at just getting going, they have that natural gift. They don't learn the skill of organizing themselves because they were able to just get by. It's like the person who can get straight A's without trying, but then once they reach their threshold, they're struggling because they don't know how to manage challenges or difficulty. And so that was, I realized, oh, I have to learn how to do this. I have to, you know, and it took me a lot. There was years I'd buy a planner and I'd be like, I'm going to do it this year. And like 2 weeks in, the planner's like it's just sitting, collecting dust. But I started to study, you know, strategies on how to plan, how to best do it with the way my brain works. And I finally like cracked it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like amazing. And BJ has to do this, right? Like I'm like pushing you to get to do it. I'm like, you don't understand. Once you unlock this, you're going to like your whole existence, your whole like kind of, again, running bone on bone. It's just going to, you know, this is like getting, I don't know, a cartilage transplant. You're just going to suddenly have space to make for yourself. And you kind of see things like puzzle pieces now on a board. So there's in this panic, like I always have to do something. It's like, no, you can prioritize, you can move things around. If you don't get this done today, well, maybe I can move it to this week, but you externalize it. And what I like too, I know we're in a very technological era, but I think a lot of people benefit from writing things down, because there is a processing to that. When you write things down, there is a cognitive cycle where you're writing it down and you're kind of like rehearsing it to yourself. When you just throw something on a calendar or whatever, that's also good, and that's part of it. But to me, that's just like a small part of it. To me, writing things down, seeing them on paper, seeing them all in like a big, you know, basically like a weekly map of sorts when you write in planner, is way more comforting and allows me to do things better than just relying on technology. And so then I got to the planner, and then I was afraid you weren't going to commit to it, because like me, we bought planners before and we were just like, whatever. And you started utilizing it, and I could just see suddenly like you were just like getting a lot of stuff done, but I could just sense like a better calmness about it, you know, just, which is what you want. And then also being able to put you like organize time for yourself too. So it's not just about being a drone and using every minute to produce for money or for the feeling of productivity. So yeah.
A couple things to add to that too. What's also interesting too is, so last year's planner was this size. This year's planner is this size. And I was joking to you, it feels like this was like the training wheels bicycle, and this is like the bicycle without it, because obviously the smaller it gets. And by the way, I've also got a tiny pencil to go with it.
You're those people that like to take your pencil down to the eraser.
Oh, look at the eraser. There's no eraser. I have to, my hands bleed when I'm erasing because I have to push so hard. But you can just see like the focus is, here's what I'll say. Besides getting rid of all the clutter in your mind, like a lot of times I'd wake up in the middle of the night. Oh, fuck, I forgot to do this. Oh, there goes my ads on YouTube. No, I think we're far enough into the episode. But essentially, and I talk about this all the time in the gym, and it's like, well, again, like take your own advice, focusing on the process versus the outcomes. Last year, because of this, because of the simple act of organizing my day, my week, and then looking ahead enough on a monthly basis. Not like ridiculous forecasting, but just enough to have a concept of what needs to get done by X amount of time, like before we go on a vacation or stuff like that. It removed so much stress. And again, I'm constantly focusing on the process. Because of this, I made 1,000 videos. If you're on YouTube listening, watching, I made 1,000 videos last year because of this that are coming your way this year. They're done. I just have to post them. And by the way, that's part of the process. Because I wasn't having something like this in the past, you start something and then like it slips once and then it gets put to the back burner, or it's so inconsistent that the people that are consuming your content, they're not getting hooked enough on it, or they don't have that expectation that has really been holding my particular growth here back. And again, whether it's YouTube or whether it's just the work you have to do in your day-to-day job. Another part of it too is when you're an entrepreneur or you're very focused on making things happen fast, you don't pace yourself properly, right? Once I know I check off, like each day I have X number of boxes that have to be checked off that are done, that is effectively pushing the needle forward for our business, for my goals. If I have the time to do more, great. But also it tells me, okay, you know what? I've got this stuff done. There are 365 days in this year. If I post 3 videos on YouTube a day for the next 365 days, 1,000 videos will go out. And, you know, and I still get impatient sometimes and I'll post like 5 times. I'm like, I want to keep pushing it. But then I'm like, you know what? I want to spend more time with you in Brazil, where you're coming from remotely. And then also our dog, you know,
you're
it's
gonna
like,
make people think I'm from Brazil.
Huh?
You're gonna make people think I'm from Brazil.
Yeah, I know.
Which is fine. I just don't want to get Brazilians excited. Like, oh, she's one of us. And then they find out it's like, she's a fraud.
She's from the Bronx, Brazil is where she's from. But I guess what I'm trying to say is it has prevented me from overworking too. Cause I also know that I've already done what I need to do today. Anything extra would be good, but also maybe it wouldn't be good because it might take away energy and enthusiasm for tomorrow. So it really, like, it has been transformative for me. And I look forward to using it. I love seeing these boxes get checked off. It gives me energy and motivation. And by the way, the more boxes I check off before noon or noonish, midday, when I tend to do my, my midday walk, and then I'll have my midday shake, like, it just makes me feel so good because I could just do a half day if I wanted to do. And typically what I end up doing is I'll just do a little extra work. I can still end my day earlier. So yeah, I can't recommend people listening are like, wow, this guy must have a room temperature IQ, because he has basically gone through, he's 41. And for the first 40 years, there was no, and by the way, in school, but no, it was in school. I used to do this in school, and I was an A student, and I always got shit done. And then I got into the work life, I got into the gym life, and like it just went to the wayside. So
I want to add a couple points.
Please.
I think the big thing, like you said, and listen, there's always that feeling. You can never make it go away as an entrepreneur that you're not doing enough. There's always something to do. But again, that has dissipated a lot when, like you said, you have designated things for that day and you get them all done. You can at least tell yourself, like, again, you're breaking all down these bigger things into smaller tasks, and you do get that sense of accomplishment, which is a healthy thing. Like, you need that. Otherwise, if you feel like you're just never accomplishing anything and you're like a rat on a hamster on a wheel. The other thing is a good example was like today, right? We were planning on doing a podcast, but we weren't sure when. And then you kind of came to me this morning and were like, do you want to do podcasts in 30 minutes? And I was just like, yeah, let me look at my planner. And then so what I do is I look at my day, and then maybe I have to move something, right? Before it would have sent me into a tailspin. Oh no, I got it. Now I had all these plans to do this today, and now you're going to just throw this on my lap, and now I got to fit this in. And what if I do? And it's like you're juggling balls, and if you add another ball, they'll all fall. And now it's just like, okay, I can still either fit this in and get everything I need to get done today, or maybe one of the things on my box is optional for today and I can move it to tomorrow. And so suddenly, like, I'm not freaking out. And then the last thing is, this is a luxury I know that we have. Not everyone has this. Some people are going to have a jam-packed day no matter what, especially if you have kids, right? Because they got to go to school, and then you got to pick them up for work, and you have to feed them, and they depend on you. Like, you can't just be like, I'm not feeling it today. But if you can do this, and this is what works for me. What I also like about it is I tend to work in sprints, right? So instead of fighting against who I am and the way I work, I try to work with it, meaning there might be 2 days out of the week where I pack that day. It's just like a super, super, super packed day. I'm getting all the things I need to get done, the busy work, the deadline based stuff. And then maybe 1 or 2 of the other days, I don't pack that day because I know that sprint, my brain's going to have to recover from it. But overall, in the whole course of the week, I'm getting the same amount done that someone who's more, inclined to just kind of work at a steady pace and kind of maintain a steady energy production rate. They might accomplish the same in the same amount of time. I'm just organizing it differently, working with the way that I work. I'm a very hyper-focused worker. So hyper-focus is great. You can put on an astronomical amount in a shorter amount of time, but there is a cost to that. Because again, you're sprinting. You can only sprint for so long. So that also helps me with that, because what would often happen is I would do a sprint, like especially a panic-based one, because there was a deadline and I didn't prepare for it and I'm getting it all done. And then the next day I feel like crap and I don't want to do anything. And I felt guilty and I felt shitty about it. And again, when you see everything on paper and you're like, you know what, I can take it a little easy today. Maybe I'll do stuff, but I'm going to do stuff that doesn't require as much mental energy. I'll get some other things checked off my list. So it helps me for that as well.
Yeah, and to add to that as well, I think besides the actual act of planning, and again, like finally getting ahead on content, wow, just like it unloads so much weight. There's just it's like living in a hypergravity environment where it's just like, because again, it's that vicious combination of like being a perfectionist, wanting to put out perfect work, but becoming a procrastinator because of that, because you're waiting for perfect conditions. And then eventually nothing gets done, or things are just getting done only when there's a true deadline in place. So now that's the bone on bone, fight or flight, literally like cortisol stoked type of working environment that not only like makes you miserable, but that energy is going to come to your home, to your work environment. And it's just going to make the work you do, it's not going to come from a place of joy. It's coming from a place of like, stress and just, it's just not good. And a big part of that too is, getting away from like hating Monday. A big part of that is like, I get almost sometimes, like, especially the best weeks for me are most of my work is done on Sunday. So I come into Monday and I'm not feeling like the fire. I'm not feeling the fire chasing me from a building as a lot of people do to start their work week, because they kind of make Sunday, it's a biblical thing, right? It's the rest day. For us, it's not only because when people are like planning their workouts, typically people they'll Sunday, what am I going to work out this week? If they are planners with their fitness. So I like to make sure I get a lot of content out on the weekends, but Sunday in particular, because, I want to be in front of people when they're thinking about planning. BJ is going to get me something, whether you want to do it or not. I'm going to get you something almost every day you can do. It's up to you to do it. But I get so much done on Sundays that not only is Monday less stressful, but typically by Thursday morning, I've already gotten everything I need to get done for the week. So we can decide to take a half day or to kind of start our weekend, or like we just say, turn up. We like to turn up.
We always pretend like we're going to turn up. We're going to tear it up. And then we're like, we go have a nice little dinner and then, watch a movie.
Yeah.
We're like, we're going to turn up.
Typically what turn up means is we're going to take an edible at home, and then I'm going to have my legs up with my Normatex on as we watch extended
for hours.
Yeah, that's turn up. Or we do dog play with Molly and stuff like that. But, again, it's been powerful. It's gotten me away from, again, whether you are focused on your fitness or your financial or whatever else you're trying to accomplish. I'm no longer worried about the outcomes. If something tanks or doesn't do well, why would I worry about it? I've got 1,000 things I have to get out that are done, ready to go. I'm just going to learn from all of these. And also, like, who else has 1,000 things ready to go? Very few people. So I know in the big picture, the outcome is going to be progressive. In the short term, just like, you don't lose the weight you wanted to lose a given week, or you missed a meal, or you had a bad meal and you want to quit, or you want to go on that slippery slope. When you're focusing on the process, and you fall in love with that process, like, I love checking off boxes. And yeah, I love to see something do well, as I'm sure you do on a podcast, does exceptionally well, or gets a lot of quick listens. And that's energizing, but I'm no longer depending on that energy because it's not going to happen on a day-to-day basis. The algorithm does not want to give you too much joy. It wants to give you just enough when it feels like you need it, and then it's going to take it away to make you work harder. We are slaves to the algorithm, but I'm not worried about that as much anymore because I'm just focusing on, again, anyone that's successful in athletics, in business, they fall in love with the process, and the planner's been critical with that. Also, front loading my work, getting as much done on Sundays so that before the new week even starts, I'm already, like I've already built up speed, and now I can get on cruise control. I'm burning less energy, and I'm creating less stress in my environment.
I think you said it all. I think maybe that's a good point to pivot.
This episode is brought to you by Topo Chico. It should be, but it's not. Great mineral water, by the way. By the way,
you don't even need our ads. I mean, anyone who touches a Topo Chico.
It is clean. It is crisp. It's the only viable path forward for people trying to get off soda, by the way, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, it just like drop kicks you with lime flavor right in the throat. Yep.
Let's bridge the gap here and let's talk about, as we get into this Netflix series, You Are What You Eat, now available on Netflix, trending. You'll definitely want to check it out if you're in health and fitness, or you just want to be kind of abreast of what's going on in the world in multiple industries, whether it be the food industry, restaurants. There obviously are environmental. There's a lot of ethical, political stuff too, which we don't want to get into today. But, essentially, in setting this up, first of all, we look at the end of 2022. Basically, you finished the last 2 years with some pretty crazy health scares, especially as someone living with you. The kidney stone incident on Black Friday last 2 years ago.
The real Black Friday.
Yep, it was black. It was, yeah. We still have the stone in the house. We call it the family stone. And then there was it's like a tiny little pebble. It's so crazy.
You can't believe the pain.
I couldn't believe it either.
Tiny little fucking speck will cause.
We're driving to the ER on Black Friday, and you're about to jump. You're in so much pain. You open the car door, like almost like you're gonna jump out of the fucking car right now.
I think everyone knows. I think everyone knows that most people know that it's one of the worst pains you can have in your life. And what makes it so bad, and I'm someone who I would say is a relatively high pain tolerance because I have had very severe migraines in the past. Luckily, knock on wood, those have really, I don't want to jinx myself, but they're very infrequent now. That is a lot genetics for me because my mom side of the family has those. But again, I don't think people understand. They think migraines are just headaches, and it's not. It is a neurological disorder. It's like a neurologic storm. It's almost like a relative to seizures, to epilepsy, similar brain processes, except migraines, they're just excruciatingly painful. Like I don't think people can understand what, might feel like for your brain to feel like in your skull, it's going to explode. And it's not just that. Your vision is impaired, your fingers and, your extremities are numb, you're uncontrollable vomiting. It is inescapable. So I know pain. But this was a different type of pain. This is, even sometimes with migraines, if I lie down, I can maybe lie my head on a pillow and just ever so slightly in a way that the pain eases for a second. Or, TMI, but actually when you're throwing up, I think sometimes like the negative pressure of puking, even for that moment, you get a moment of relief as you're puking. With the kidney stone, there's no second. There's a relief. There's no position you can get in that gives you a second. So I'm sitting in the car and I'm like standing. I'm like, like trying to just get somewhere and there's no escape. It's like you're being attacked. And so sitting in a car, but sitting was extremely excruciating, probably because, there's inflammation there and you're like compressing it. So I'm trying to just stand. I'm trying to like open a window. You also want to vomit because it's so much pain. And so, yeah, it was such a nightmare. And what's crazy is you're fine. It comes on so quick. I woke up that morning fine. We didn't even particularly have like a crazy Thanksgiving where we like stuffed our faces or anything like that. And I just felt like a little pain on my side thinking, oh, whatever, it's a stitch, blah, blah, blah. And then like maybe 5 to 10 minutes later, I'm telling BJ, you got to take me to the ER. Like it came on so fast.
And 30 minutes later, you're on the floor of the ER, ass out. I'm like trying to pull your pants up because your ass is literally out.
And this is the thing.
Writhing in pain.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because I was in such severe pain, I was like, take me to the closest ER, which wasn't the best ER, and it was a Black Friday ER, meaning they're understaffed, it's crowded. It felt like I write horror stories, and actually a lot of my horror is based on real life, and I think someday I will write on this, but the feeling of like you're in so much pain, but you're almost like in the twilight zone, because to them it's mundane. Oh, it's another person with kidney stones, or does she really have kidney stones, or is she seeking pain medication, right? This is like a post also COVID world where the staff is kind of like jaded. I understand that, right? They're kind of like, you don't feel like they take your pain seriously because they've seen it all at this point, right? And they're overworked, and they've probably been crapped on by people because people have not said nice things about healthcare workers. At first it started, yay, let's go outside and clap for them, right? Like the first week. And then it was like, they're all liars, right? So, but at that moment, you're unable to advocate for yourself. You're in so much pain, and to them, it's just another Tuesday or Friday.
I'm trying to advocate for you, and they're
trying to kick them out.
They've tried to throw me out of the ER like 3 separate times.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole other podcast on this.
Yeah.
Just on like the experience of.
The big focus of that is, now, why did this happen? You were not drinking water. And now you drink more. You're still not like, again, I live with 2 women, you and our dog, and both of you are a little bit underhydrated, but at least you're drinking more water than you used to. It took you being literally going through a kidney stone to finally like take hydration seriously. And then I want to fast forward to this past holiday season. And basically, you're celebrating the holiday with hives.
Yeah. So I want to emphasize something, which is that I know because I'm married to BJ, people think like that we live exactly the same, or that we have the same, I don't know, lifestyle. And in many ways we do. But like I said, you want to take advice from people who are bad at organizing, who have figured it out. I'm not good at maintaining certain habits. Like that's just never been my forte, right? Like BJ, once he adds something to his habit list, it will never fall off unless he wants it to, for pretty much.
I get angry if you try to.
Yeah, like he's a routine person.
You'll offer to help with the dishes. I'm like, no. So
yeah,
once I'm like, okay, I once you basically put to me in the sense that the dishes would, it's not only just the fact that the kitchen is always clean and ready to be used and it looks nice and you want to be in it, but that it's unloaded X amount of stress from you, and it was just a great service for you. Then it's just something that I do. I watch my Lakers game, and during the post game, I hit the dishes. I do it before bed. It's just, so it's locked in. You asked me to get the mail on the midday walk. Now it's just every day that's going to happen. So, but the same, and I always take the trash out, but don't touch my trash.
This is like, yeah, don't touch the trash. And I think also I had gone away with the amount of water that I drank for a long time, but then I didn't account for the fact that we now live in the desert. And what that does is it just sucks the moisture out of your body. So it's not enough to drink what I was drinking before. I have to kind of be on top of it. And I've always had this issue where I just like something is up with my wiring, where I just, even when I drink more water and they say, oh, you drink more water, you should start to feel more thirsty as your body gets used to it. I just don't really have a thirst sensation. That happens with some people. It's very easy for me to just kind of forget to hydrate because I just don't get a thirst. I have to literally tell myself, you must hydrate. So it's another chore on my plate at all times. And I've had to develop habits. So now we go to the hives. This is ongoing. I don't want to pretend I've got it all solved or whatever. A side note, I'm doing the thing where, you know how you become your parents, and it's terrifying because my mother, and I would describe her as not hardy in certain ways, meaning she has allergies to almost everything. Like she has allergies to a lot of medications that are very important, like penicillin, stuff like that. And I'm talking about potential anaphylaxis levels. And I've not been allergic to so much as cut grass or pollen. Never in my life have I had an allergy. I just don't experience that. I've never had to take antihistamines, anything like that. So I always used to be like, gosh, mom, like, what is up with you? You know, like, how are you just so like, and I have my theories on that, but we won't get into that. But I think certain early childhood illnesses that people in my generation have had the luxury of not having, you know, like not that far long ago, there were certain vaccinations that didn't even exist for certain childhood illnesses. And those are now being shown to permanently mess with your immunity, specifically measles and stuff like that. But anyways, and I'm just thinking about this and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm becoming my mom. Now this is happening. But anyways, I went to bed again, same story. I went to bed fine one day and I woke up feeling a little itchy. You know, the sheets are over my body. So I thought maybe a couple bites, even though the mosquitoes aren't out right now. I thought maybe something got me. And then much to my horror, I go into the bathroom and I discover my entire body is covered in hives. And I don't just mean one here, one here, one here. I mean, it looks like an eruption has happened on my body. So of course that day we go through the motions of like, maybe it's a detergent or maybe it's this. So I take first I flipped out. It's like, do we have bed bugs? Right. Even though that's not how you would react normally to them. So I'm looking everywhere. No, pristine. I go and I get, scentless detergent. I do all the right things that first day. And I'm convinced I'll go to bed because it diminishes during the day. So I'm like, oh, by the time I go to bed, it's mostly gone. So I'm going to sleep this off and tomorrow will be a new day. And I woke up the next morning with even worse hives. And this was 7 weeks ago. I started to have a slow cascade of worsening hives every morning. It was the same cycle where it's mostly diminished during the day. I'd go to sleep and I'd wake up erupted. And of course, this is during the holidays. So it's not easy to get in with the doctors and it's not. So I told BJ this, like, I'm not that person that gets sick and it's like, I'm going to triumph. I'm going to feel good no matter what. No, I'm freaking out. I don't like being sick. I actually have a pretty good immune system. Like contrary to what this might sound like, I don't really get colds or stuff like that. Like I can't remember the last time, knock on wood, I've just had like the sniffles. And so I'm panicking. I'm trying to get in with the doctor. But one thing about me is I'm not just going to sit there and wait for other people to fix things if I can do something about it. Right. I just can't sit there and let my body erupt in hives every day. And what was starting to scare me as it progressed was I started to get angioedema, which is, you've probably seen it. If you haven't experienced yourself, people who have allergies, your lips start to swell, right? You start getting that. So hives are just like the surface of your skin getting inflamed, but angioedema is underneath. It fills with water. And the lips sucked. It's not a big deal. But because of the progressiveness of it, I was scared it might progress to my throat and tongue. And that is basically anaphylaxis. And what was freaking me out was it was pretty clear to me that this was not your typical allergy. It wasn't one thing I ate that would strike. It was, I could eat whatever I want during the day. I could sleep in that same bed, take a nap, but every night at the same time it was happening. So I started to I just did a shotgun thing. I was like, I got to stem this while I'm waiting for specialists and all these people, because this is not a knock to the system. I understand doctors have to work within a framework, but the rate at which they move and how they investigate things, it's very like, we're going to look at this one thing first, right? Then we're going to get tests for that thing. You got to wait on the results for the tests. Even if you know that the tests are going to come back, like I know that the allergies are not it. So now, it's not that. Well, we got to go back to the drawing board. We got to go back to your primary, perhaps. Now get another specialist and another round. That could take months to solve. In some cases, you have no choice. They are your only answer. But I felt that I could try to do something about it in the meantime. So it was time for me to be honest with myself and kind of examine how I was treating my body, because I knew with myself the past few months, at least, I hadn't been feeding it the way I used to or the way I normally have. I dropped off a lot. And so I just started kind of like just going on like this deep dive into what is an entire world of people. I mean, people don't have no idea. There are people that have been suffering with this for decades. People who will just randomly, for no reason, be going on a walk and suddenly just start like lips start swelling, throat starts closing on them. And they don't it's very hard to diagnose because it's called urticaria. That's the fancy word for hives. But there are conditions where there's not always a clear answer. It's not always, oh, pollen or dogs or something like that. It is your immune system. It is autoimmune. And is your immune system hyper responding in one way or another? There's a million ways that that can happen. And they don't all know all the ways. They kind of just tell you, well, I'm sorry, it seems like it's autoimmune, and we'll throw some medication at it and hopefully we can stem it. So that's where I found myself having to kind of like, I was just desperate at that point. So I just started, you were here for that. I don't know if you want to chime in, because I know I'm just, just going on and on.
I mean, like, so here's the thing. You won't know by looking at her, but Naomi's 40 years old.
Oh, don't say this on YouTube. They're going to be like, bitch looks 40. No.
No. She has literally the same skin that she had when I met her in college when she was 19. And those titties, they still sit.
Oh my God.
High.
For God's sake.
They sit high. I just want to feel the weight of them.
Thank God they're under the.
Oh, beautiful. Gets me going. Beautiful bosoms. But that's a side note. The reality is she's 40. All right. Like, and this is the thing about life. Like, we have to learn lessons the hard way in a lot of ways. A lot of times we have to wait till we get rock bottom or get scared straight. We try to share the lessons to the people, and the people wind up making their own decisions typically. And some people will listen, and some people will, take that perspective. But the stuff you used to be able to get away with, in especially your teens, your 20s, maybe even a little bit in your 30s, the margin for error is gone. You burnt through those checks. And, you were doing a lot of baked goods, and, ultimately what we've known like this whole time that we've been together, in terms of you can't really tolerate dairy or creamy stuff, and you don't do well with meats. You just don't do well with it digestively.
Particularly beef, like the heavier meats, like beef, really.
Yeah.
I've been diagnosed with GERD, but that is also just like a very broad diagnosis, right? It's that either your esophagus isn't properly closed and it comes up, but it could also be from low stomach acid, high stomach acid, blah, blah, blah. So you either get some complicated surgery for it, which I'm not a fan of, because I don't think there's such a thing as minor GI surgery. Like, the doctor's like, oh, it's nothing. We're just going to take your esophagus and we're going to tie it around your stomach. And I'm like, whoa, like, to me, that's not nothing. Anytime I'm under 100%, and a quick 6 to 8 weeks of recovery, I'm like, whoa, like, again, I'm not against modern medicine at all. I think it is amazing, and there are many things that you need it for, but I do think there's a lot of things where behavioral changes can stem it. And ultimately, whether or not, to me, the hives were, maybe it's a genetic, again, your genes exist, and then there's things that turn genes on, and maybe something genetic has been waiting to happen for me, and it happened, but it couldn't hurt to focus on lowering my inflammation, right? Regardless of whether or not you can help the actual disease process or disorder process that is in your body, you want to set yourself up and kind of support your body in the best way possible to fight it or to stem it. So that was my philosophy. I didn't go in thinking, oh, I'm going to 100% cure this or something like that. But I just needed to stop the progression, because the progression was freaking me out. And it was going from also, just during the nighttime, and then, an hour or two into the day, almost all going away, to slowly, it was taking longer and longer into the day for the hives to settle. And I was still being itchy throughout the day, and still sometimes my knuckles would be swollen, right, from the angioedema. So it feels almost arthritic. It's just fluid, but it feels, Well,
and you were having joint pain, and again, like,
because it swells your joints if you have angioedema.
Listening will relate to this. You were doing a lot of baked goods, a lot of desserts. It was a heavy meat streak, like during for pretty much Thanksgiving through the New Year.
Yeah, it was really like a careless. And that's the thing. It's like, I'm not a big eater. Like, I don't sit there stuffing my face. So I just thought, okay, well, I'm not like throwing endless calories down my throat, but the quality of the food was not there.
No.
And it's like, it's intellectually, of course I knew that, but I honestly, frankly, just didn't care at the time. Like, that's the difference. And that's what I'm trying to say. Like, a regular person at the time, I had other shit that I cared about more than putting the effort into that. And I thought I could get away with it because, again, I've never had allergies in my life. I'm pretty robust immune system wise. It just didn't occur to me that things could spiral so quickly. And, you know, in all fairness, this could be triggered by a virus, right?
Yeah.
Like, it could be something that I could not help. You know, I cut myself and a virus got in and it triggers. So it's not to say to blame any particular person for chronic illness, because this is a complicated, or, you know, chronic or autoimmune disease. These are complicated processes. People can be exposed to the same virus and someone not have the same outcome as someone else. But again, there's doing what you can to make sure that your body is as ready as possible to deal with those things. And the way my brain works, unlike BJ, is I do need things to scare me to do stuff. But once I was scared, it became so easy to say no to stuff. And I mean, I think you might even be shocked how quickly I changed, because once I know I can't have something or decided this is off the table, then it's not even a consideration. And this is what I'm doing now is more difficult than probably anything I've ever done, because I should also add that it just so happened that since it was around the holidays, there were Black Friday sales. So again, while waiting for the medical establishment to catch up with things with me, I just got on a Black Friday sale, something I've been meaning to get, because like BJ said, we kind of have always known, a food intolerance test. And it came with a blood allergy test because it was Black Friday. Anyways, so food intolerance, I think that's something that maybe you can have a guest that is an expert on more of these things, because I think it is a controversial thing, because I think a lot of times what happens is when there's not enough evidence in the medical world, they will say, well, that doesn't mean anything, or that doesn't work. But to me, there's a difference between saying there's not enough evidence for something and there's evidence that this thing does not work, right? I think there's still a lot of testing to be done in that arena and all that. But to me, it couldn't hurt to take this test and see if the IgG antibodies, so IgE antibodies are run-of-the-mill allergies, right? Like pollen or something like that. You have antibodies, IgE antibodies in your blood. They make you sniffle, they make you cry, maybe you get hives, whatever. IgG is a different type of antibody, and that's what they test for food intolerance. So I'm like, let me just start there. So I did, and I got that test back. And what did it tell me? It told me cow's milk. Surprise, surprise. It told me, this was a surprise to me, cashews.
Devastating too. It's the most beautiful nut, isn't it?
Oh, it's the best nut. And the thing is, I don't eat it a ton, but it's one of my favorite nuts. I mean, because I don't, eat pounds of nuts. Usually if I have cashews, it's just a few at a time. God help me. But these were the ones that killed me, soy and yeast. Now, again, with the IgG tests, they're guidelines. They're to say, try an elimination diet, see if you feel different, and then you can try to reintroduce these things, because it doesn't mean necessarily, it's just a guideline. But cow's milk to cut out is one thing, even cashews. You do not realize how much of the food supply has yeast and soy in it. And
the food supply, I mean, and this is why we're bridging the gap into the You Are What You Eat Netflix series and just that conversation. And again, we're not experts on this. I'm wearing a fucking apron, okay? But it says Uncle Baby Biscuits on it. But the reality is the food supply is fucked. This affects all of us. We all know this, but again, in a situation like Naomi, she can't have any soy or yeast. She basically can't go to restaurants. She can't go to most grocery stores, or the grocery store experience is marred by trying to find the one or two things in each aisle that may not have soy or yeast in it. This is where we are. Beyond the environmental impact of this, the future for our kids, the younger generations coming up, and this is what happens, by the way, why I'm so anti-big insert, whether it be fitness, shout out to Peloton, those sluts. Whether it be McDonald's, big money corporations, these profiteers that find the ways to make as much food as possible at the cheapest cost with bad ingredients, bad process, and it just they pass it on to us. And here we are, and it's just really sad and unfortunate. But at the same time, too, what you're also hearing too is Naomi is quickly becoming her own version of an expert with this stuff too. Like, you can't just allow this stuff to happen to you. You know, when I went to after my fourth and final knee surgery at the age of 21, and the guy said, you can't squat, lunge, or run, or do these things anymore because you have the arthritis and joint damage of an 85-year-old. What would that leave me with now at 41? I would be fat and morbidly obese, and I certainly wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be looking like this in an apron at 41. I took that as, okay, I'm not expecting anything from you. And I don't mean, I haven't had the best experience with doctors personally. Some people swear by doctors and have been lucky. I just didn't have good medical. I didn't have access to good doctors. Not all doctors are the same. Not all trainers are the same. Not all podcasters are the same. But ultimately, if you talk to any doctor or any trainer, we know we have so little control of this anyway. We see you and you go do whatever the fuck you want to do. You've got to take ownership of your diet, your exercise, what happens in your house, the foods you get and bring into your home. And it unlocked me on this journey of becoming an absolute expert with not only my body, but the process of dealing with knee pain and various other things. I had yesterday, I haven't gotten the episode out yet, but I recorded this yesterday, a football teammate of mine in college who literally had a widowmaker situation where he woke up, his chest popped, and a couple hours later, he's doing open heart surgery. Jeez. And 1% chance of survival. And, you know, the perspective completely changed for him. Your perspective changes with this stuff too. And what I mentioned to him on this show, You Are What You Eat, Mayor Eric Adams, and again, nothing political, but he went in and they're told you got diabetes. And a lot of people were like, will be initially just depressed and just accept the diagnosis. Okay, I'm just going to have to take insulin injections. This sucks. Woe is me, and it does suck. But you can't change that. All you can change is your mindset with this stuff. And many people would go home, and if they actually did Google or try to learn about their new condition, they'd be like managing diabetes. And he entered the two words of reversing diabetes. Do you understand?
Specifically type 2, because just to be clear, I know we all know type 1 is you know, that's just.
Yes. But that's what I mean. Like, it's that mindset of, okay, are you going to accept this, or are you going to actually do something about it? Are you going to try to find whatever that you can control in your own life and lifestyle to mitigate the negative consequences and or reverse or overcome, right? That's the mindset that this is required in tackling all of these issues in and out of the gym, in and out of the kitchen, in and out of whatever you're trying to accomplish in life. But this parlays very well. And again, like Naomi is, we will say though, once you cut out certain things, like we got rid of anything that had soy or yeast in it, you're pretty much eliminating anything that is animal-based.
Well, yeah, let me interject. We decided, even with those eliminations, I started joining chronic urticaria groups and learning from people who have had this condition, people who have reversed it, who are put into remission. And I just started taking little pieces, right? So it became clear that a lot of, as people know, there's the research is really just starting to pop off now, but gut health and how that relates to your immune system. And we just decided, okay, my gut needs like a serious rest, not just to cut out those things, but to cut out the things that I just never felt agreed with me. And a lot of people in the chronic urticaria groups also have had success with removing gluten from their diet. Now, I don't think I have celiac or anything like that, but I do have one of the genes that is associated with it. I just know this from like, you know, taking those DNA tests. I know I have one of the genes that makes me more likely to have it. So we just kind of like, I have to be able to know exactly what's in my body. So I've been cooking all my food very, the other thing was I had gotten my wisdom teeth taken out years ago. And at that time, I kind of accidentally fell into more of a vegetarian diet. And I had never felt better because I think personally, just my genes, like someone like BJ, he can probably drink cow's milk straight out the titty.
I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm the dairy capital of the world.
You also are half, I mean,
I literally had a cheese head as a Packers fan. But here's the thing too, is like, in all honesty, my main problem has always been diet. Diet has always been the biggest challenge for me. Diet is what holds back my YouTube thumbnails from reaching millions of people because I still eat a little bit too much on the weekend. So I looked at this health scare for you as selfishly an opportunity for me to get in even better shape because I want to support you in it. I was at Whole Foods picking up our normal treats for TGIT when we turn up on Thursdays, and I snuck a slice of pizza because I don't want to eat pizza in front of you right now because you don't need that. And so again, like it's not about, we're not trying to tell you to do anything here. It's just, this is just Naomi's reality, and we're together in this. And I certainly could do a better job with my diet, cleaning it up. I absolutely taken way too many animal products. I probably eat too much animal protein. I could do with eating more, and I do eat a lot of good fruits and vegetables. I actually have a pretty clean diet.
Yeah, you're good for you're 99.9% of the population. Any tightening you do further than that is just exceptional to that. But I also think to add to that, two things, which is there is no one way to eat. That's the whole point of what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
You have to discover what it is that your body, your genetic makeup, whatever is going to respond best to, and work with that. That's why any diet book that's like, this is the only way, you can grab that book and learn from it. And maybe that diet might work for you. Parts of it might, but ultimately you have to, again, just like with your health, you have to kind of, and doctors, you have to advocate for yourself and figure out what is going to work the best for you. And secondly, I understand that I'm in a position where I can make these quick changes for two reasons. Again, I don't have to feed an entire family with different needs. And the other thing, I have a very supportive partner. Like a lot of people, it was really, I felt instantly guilty thinking, oh my God, like it's going to be a while before we can go out to restaurants. Because again, the goal is you figure it out, your gut your gut kind of heals and stabilizes. And then you can introduce things here and there. You just can't like fall back into a complete haphazard diet. But for now, it's pretty extreme. Like he's going to turn up Thursdays and getting treats. My treat now is a bag of what are they called? Boulder Canyon potato.
Yeah, Boulder Canyon potato chips, because it's literally just
salt,
avocado
potato.
oil, salt, and potato.
Yeah, like to me, that's my big treat right now. Like that's whoa. But I'm eating just really basic foods. We're not going out to restaurants, and people have partners who even with much smaller changes fight back on that, right? They don't want to make the changes. And I'm having to ask a lot of someone who like really likes their meats, their dairy and stuff like that. But he never for a second made me feel bad. Like I remember the first time we decided, okay, like, because I had done almost like a trial week, but I hadn't gone full basically plant-based. And that weekend we added a little of meat back into just, as a treat. And my hives immediately came back up. So that's when we decided, okay, now it's time to just go all plant-based, just really par down. And we went to Whole Foods to see, okay, well, maybe there's some vegan stuff I can try. And that's when I realized and remembered, oh, they put yeast in everything, because yeast is basic. When you can't have cheese, yeast becomes a big component of cheese-like substances, fake cheese. Soy is huge in the vegan world. So that's when I realized, oh, wow, I can't even go to the vegan aisle for the most part. I have to completely go down to only whole foods that I can prepare myself. And I was starting to feel I had that moment of like, can I do this? Like, this is impossible. And I never felt like the added pressure of someone guilting me for those needs, or saying like, oh man, you're really a drag, or oh, now we can't go to we can't get pizza every weekend, blah, blah, blah. And I actually kept saying like, please eat whatever you want in front of me, because like I said, I'm in tunnel vision right now. So even if you ate like a steak in front of me, I don't give a shit at this point. I might go, that looks good. But again, I'm locked in. But even though I said he could do that and I insist, he personally he really doesn't do that. He'll buy a slice of pizza out of the house and eat it or something like that. So it really helps to have a supportive partner. And unfortunately, not everyone has it. So I understand there's a lot of obstacles to this, but even just small changes can still have they might take longer to kick in. Like, I'm just going to say, like, I haven't even gotten I just spoke to because of the holidays, I finally just got my first allergist appointment yesterday, and it was over the phone just to set things up. And I'm already, it's almost like a miraculous decline.
It's been it's been what, 10 days?
Yeah, I mean, you're really good with dates. When did I start really hardcore?
The last outbreak you had that was really bad, we got tacos, and there was a lot of beef in the tacos, and then the next day was like not good. And
yeah, I was like, oh, well, it's corn. Yeah, because I can have corn. So it's like, oh, corn shell, the masa, which is just corn, water, whatever. And then a little birria, you know, it's like stewed beef. And that broke me out. And then that's when we went hardcore. And I used to basically wake up like in despair because, again, you think, okay, this is going to be the morning. It can spontaneously reverse, because it does spontaneously reverse in certain people. And every morning it was like a big fuck you. And it gets to your head. Like, people, I don't think people understand that, because they think, oh, well, it's not going to kill you. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily true, because if angioedema progresses to the point where you get into anaphylaxis, it can kill you. And it does hurt. What people don't know about severe hives is they feel like bruises. So it would feel like in certain areas that like I've been punched, you know, like I would feel the bruising on my body. You don't see it, but that's what the hives do. So, but it's the mental despair, because you think, oh, you can just take a medication, right? Like a Zyrtec or an Allegra. But when you have it really severely, they're resistant to that. Like the Zyrtec didn't touch them. And I would just wake up in total despair, just like scratching or slapping yourself, because you don't want to scratch yourself. And you're just like, you feel like you don't have control of your body anymore. And that's scarier than any particular symptom. You feel like you're this big mystery. And so that first morning I woke up, I didn't want to get too excited, but it was just like a miracle. I woke up and there was just a couple bumps, and they weren't itchy or anything. And then it happened the next day, and then it happened the next day. And again, I'm doing the shotgun approach because I'm trying to throw everything at it. I'm also taking certain supplements that I researched that are specific to this condition that tend to help with controlling histamine in your body. So I'm sure some of that has to do with it. Again, I'm literally saying to my body, I'm going to throw everything at you so you can chill out. And it's almost like, of course this is going to help. Again, whether or not I always have this condition to some degree, I firmly believe, had I not changed just 10 days ago, that I would still be either stable in a certain case where I would wake up inflamed every morning, possible joint inflammation, blah, blah, or I'd be progressing and maybe waking up with my lips swollen every morning, and maybe starting to, you know, get swelling in my throat or tongue, that kind of stuff. So I don't feel like it's a coincidence that it is steadily now at this point. I'm not scared to wake up in the morning and freak out and just lose it.
Extreme circumstances require extreme interventions. You know, again, like that's where it's like, you know, and I say this all the time, it's not sustainable, it's questionable, but the reality is you need to completely flip the script on this. You need a night and day type of response to what's been going on. And, you know, and this goes right to it, right? Like you've taken some supplements, yes, but the biggest change, if we're being honest, has been your diet. And now we kind of get right into this Netflix series, You Are What You Eat.
Oh, I'll add one thing. Aside from the hives, let's say the hives just stayed where they were, my energy levels are just like night and day at this point. My mental clarity. So again, even if it doesn't fix a specific problem, again, it's putting me in a better place to address that problem. Because, you know, again, in this healthcare system we have now, you really have to advocate for yourself, because you kind of feel like you're on a conveyor belt. Again, if you have tons of money or if you work in a hospital, you probably have access. But if you're just an average person, it can be really hard to fit in a system that is especially fractured now because of people leaving it. So they're understaffed, insurance companies continuing to, and in private hospitals continuing more and more on a profit basis. And so you kind of have to become an expert in your own condition. Like if you just go in there blindly, it'll drag on forever.
I mean, what does it say about our society that you and I know more about nutrition than most doctors?
Oh yeah. And if I get the time, because again, they've been forced to take on more and more patients. So you get like 5 minutes with your doctor, 10 minutes. And I mention those other things, they often treat it like an afterthought. you know, like, oh, okay, yeah, but really what we need to do is make sure you're on this medication. And again, I hate to sound like I'm not anti-medicine. That is a miracle. You know, many of us are alive today because of modern medicine, but it's not just one thing, right? You have to do your part in the equation too. And there are people, like I said, the people that had this for decades and they tried certain diets and it hasn't kicked, because again, this is like a cough, right? Hives are like a cough. There's a million reasons they can manifest and they don't know all of them. So, you know, what works for me may not work for someone else, but at least if I did all this and nothing changed, I would know I did everything I could. And now I've just got to put it in the hands of some doctors and maybe get on some heavier medication and stuff like that. But I wanted to know that I did everything I could before it goes to having to go on to, because again, a lot of these medications are steroids, right? And we know that those are tough to put through your body and they don't cure things. Like, you often get on steroids and then they have to take you off and then it just comes back with a vengeance. A very popular medication is a bi-weekly or monthly injection. Again, so these are like big commitments, both financially and just a thing that you have to add to your life, that if you can avoid, why not try to avoid it or minimize, you know, the dosages you have to take, stuff like that. So I think these things are all synergistic. But yeah, so now we can go back to.
Well, but that's also the thing too. It's like, and I'm trying to like say this strategically, but ultimately I'm going to simplify it. No one's going to solve your fucking problems except you. I'm just telling you right now, people, like, everyone wants to go out there and they expect someone else to solve their problems, whether it's mental health, whether it's your physical health. The fact that people want to just immediately start taking pills and get injected before actually looking at making some dietary alterations for a couple of days, give it 7 to 10 days, just change your diet and see what happens. But why do you automatically want to get stuck with a needle and start taking some pills? You know, because it is easier, because again, it's the cynicism of not only the medical industry, but the food industry, and that they realize, okay, people aren't going to change their habits. They're lazy, they're uneducated, whatever, right? So let's just make it easy on them. And then beyond the fact that we make so much money by selling them these pills and giving them these injections, let's just guarantee the outcome as we see it. So again, I'm not trying to shame doctors who save people's lives on a daily basis. All right. But all I'm saying to you is, if you think someone else is going to solve your problems, life is going to be tough. You've got to take some ownership of what you put in your mouth, how you move your body, and how you live your life on a regular basis. And again, I'm not saying I'm the king of life, but as someone who grew up fat and dealt with a lot of joint pain and was addicted to pain pills, and has completely reversed a lot of that stuff through consistent diet and exercise, and has also passed that along to good people like you that listen to what we do and do our programs and stuff like that, and have seen similar benefits. You know, it's like, at some point, it's like, what's the approach? All right. And so this series, and this series is based on these twin experiments where basically one twin goes on a typical diet involving meat, another twin goes on a plant-based diet, and then after 8 weeks, they test their blood, they test their fitness, they do a bunch of metrics that determine which diet was better. Not to be confused with the twin flame.
Oh yeah, if you go to the Twin Flames, you're gonna be very confused if you go to that show.
Also a Netflix series, by the way, and highly entertaining. But are we twin flames?
I think we are.
Oh my God.
Feminine energy. What was it? Feminine energy and masculine. Is that what it was?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, it's the feminine.
You're the masculine. No, divine. For a week, we started calling everything in our house divine. We'd be like, can you turn off the divine light in the hallway?
I'm the divine masculine, you're the divine
feminine. Yes.
No, we also, I think why we mix is
no, we definitely have.
Uncle Baby has a good amount of femininity, and you have a good amount of masculinity.
Yeah, that was always the irony. Is there's certain things that I feel a little husky in my personality. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Uncle Baby's highly emotional.
Yeah,
and Naomi is. You're not a. Well, you can be cold as ice, but you're a very sweet, kind person too.
Thank you. I think I've softened with age, as people do.
Yeah, we all have.
Yeah, but I was a tough cookie, especially when we met. And but we've rubbed off on each other. I think,
Yes.
you've become better able to manage your big emotions. You have big emotions. You're sensitive. And I don't mean that as a pejorative. I mean that you feel deeply, but it's hard to manage. And I've kind of taught you strategies. And then you've helped me, learn like it's okay to crack the nut. It's okay to feel a little bit. Sometimes feelings, ugh.
Yeah, I know, I get it. Because I can go from a belly laugh to wanting to kill someone within a microsecond. That's how wild my emotions can swing. But again, like, and not to get, I don't want to make this a mental health episode, but I went on medication for a year in 2022. And basically what that did to me is it eliminated all feelings. I didn't feel anything for a year. I had no joy. I had no sadness. And I will say the one benefit of that was it allowed me to get really clinical and technical with my work because I lost my creative gifts. I'm trying to make these workouts and I'm like, God, I don't really, but I've got to get it done. And so I just focused on, I did the best I could within the time frame I was allotted and just got shit done. And I checked things off. And, but ultimately at the end, I'm like, I'm taking these pills and I'm like, this is not me. And again, I'm not, you do you. But if I look over the course of my life, all the problems I've had to take inventory and I had to fix them myself and do the daily work of trying to fix my dietary habits, how I manage stress, how I can start managing my emotional swings, my mood swings, and the triggers that I have. Typically with people are my trigger. I really struggle with interpersonal relationships, and I've been able to create a life that allows me to have minimal human interactions, which has been amazing. I'm not going to lie to you. But I've also been trying to work on how I am managing the interactions I absolutely do have to have with humans. What I'm trying to get to is, and by the way, the people, the therapist people I would talk to, like, they had no interest in helping me learn about like how to manage this myself. I'd have a 5-minute conversation with someone, and basically they're trying to figure out if I need more medication or more. And like, what is this? What is this? And I share that with you because, again, even if you need to take a pill, even if you need to take an injection or both, if you're not willing to do any outside changes on yourself, the benefits of those pills and that medication and those injections, they're most beneficial in the short term. Long term, this is you. You still haven't changed yourself at your core in terms of behavior and that type of stuff. So I just want to share that with you guys because I know what it's like, in both physical and mental, to be hit with something and to feel lost, especially because the people that you're going to for help, like, they don't seem really interested in helping me. And ultimately, like, no, actually, my whole life, anything I've done good, I've helped myself.
Yeah. And again, that's not to say that everything is in your control, but if you can't, the things that you can control can help a lot, and the things that you can't. That's not to say sometimes life hits you with something that is completely going to rock your fucking socks off. But we're talking about not those things. You know what I mean? Like, God forbid someone dies or, a terminal illness, whatever, but a lot of the things that we're experiencing as a country, and I think it's spreading around the world as modernization comes into effect, are issues of food supply, are issues of behavior, and a lot of diseases like high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes. A lot of those, thankfully, can be reversed. I mean, a great example is my brother. My brother's much older than me, and he got a health scare. He wasn't feeling well, and he went, and this is a common story because they call it the silent killer, high blood pressure. I think he went to the doctor and they were like, how's your head not exploded? Right? Like, and I know someone else who had this, and she doesn't even present, like, you wouldn't look at her and go, oh man, she's, on death's door, but she was a very busy professional, extremely stressful occupation, running her own law firm. And same thing, went to the doctor. They put on the cuff and they're like, holy shit, like, you need to, like, now go to the ER, that kind of thing. And but for my brother, it completely changed, much like me, I guess it runs in the family. It completely changed the way he eats. He lost a ton of weight. He now has everything under control. He's, completely did a 180. And that's, that's a comfort to know that there are things that you can do about certain things. But the twin study was really cool because, again, their twin studies are like the most like prime type of study, right? Because you have two genetically identical people. And what is crazy is like sometimes one twin will be taller than the other. One might have a different personality slightly. And that goes to kind of show you the mystery of genes, that you can have the same genes as someone, but they might express slightly differently for reasons we don't understand. It could be exposure to hormones in the womb. It could be environmental things, there's things like that, but they're about as similar. It's as close as you can get to doing, having a control in a person where you could do multiple things to the same person and then see what the outcomes are, where you rarely are able to get that. You're not able to get that in just the general population with regular people.
Yeah. And again, like, a quick overview, I guess, of, because again, watch the series. Again, there's a good amount of fear mongering. It's entertainment. Don't forget that. But ultimately, it's the stuff that, like, at some point we all have to confront. The food supply is fucked. We got to really make decisions, better decisions on what are we going to support? Are we going to support big meat? Are we going to support, these types of companies that are giving us terrible food? By the way, at increasingly high costs. And part of the issue is they're trying to get these higher costs down. And to do so, it means that they have to create even worse conditions for these animals and or feed them even worse foods, which basically affect the nutrients coming to us when it meets our table or our plate. But in terms of the actual twin result, and again, it wasn't a perfect experiment because in some cases, like, so the 265 twins, one guy was doing resistance training. The other guy was just kind of like playing with his kid or like doing push-ups when he could. And again, I'm a big fan of bodyweight exercise, but they weren't doing the same workout. So when you get the results and one gained so much more muscle than the other, and the guy who did gain more muscle, he was on the meat diet, but he was also doing more intense exercise, more resistance training, where the guy was just like had to move a couple times in a matter of a month and had a kid and was like, he can only exercise with his kid on him. So it wasn't a true exercise control. But I will say across all the studies, what did kind of come out was the people that were on the more plant-based diet, they had better health outcomes. They could still gain muscle. They weren't gaining muscle maybe at the same rate as the animal-based subjects. But again, like, this is where it's like, what are we trying to do? Is your main goal in life maximizing your muscle mass? If it is, it's really hard to argue with incorporating some animal protein into your diet, okay? Beyond the ethical, political, all that stuff, environmental. But you can still build muscle with plants, and plants seem to be the key to reversing a lot of bad health outcomes. There is even every one of the vegetarian diets, they lengthen their telomeres, which basically means that their biological age was reversed. Like, they actually got younger biologically, even though their chronological age was this. Where the meat-based diets, they're, I
think they stayed the same meat-based. Like, they didn't reverse.
They stayed the same, or it was I think you're right on the telomere piece.
Like, it didn't hurt, but it didn't reverse the way. Again, these are 8 weeks. These are 8-week studies.
It's only 8 weeks. So again, the length of the study was limited. The controls were not good across other outcomes as well. But we kind of know this too. Like, your cholesterol is going to go down if you're on a plant-based diet, because most cholesterol-containing foods are animal-based, eggs and meats and those types of things, right? Not that cholesterol is as big of a marker as maybe it's been touted to be. By the way, for someone like me, my genetics, high cholesterol runs in my family. And I've had doctors blown away by my blood work in the past because my LDL is higher than you want genetically, just because it's there. But because of my exercise and diet, my good cholesterol is so high that the actual ratio, which is most important, it's the ratio of your good to bad cholesterol is it's in the golden ratio, exactly what you would want it to be. Though again, as I get older, that genetic condition is not going to get better; it's going to worsen. So it does make sense for someone like me who loves his dairy and his meats, just like anyone would that does a lot of exercise and grew up that way, and it's part of my culture. I do enjoy it. It doesn't give me joy that animals are murdered to feed me, but I do enjoy the food. At the same time, too, I could do well with less, and I have. I tried to have more plant-based protein when I can. I've cut down as much as I can the red meat and stuff like that. So again, it's not about necessarily going cold turkey on this type of stuff, but like we kind of talked about as well, it might mean I'm not going to eat any meat unless it's going to be bought local. I am done supporting big meat in any fucking fashion. And so if I'm going to have beef, I'm going to make sure ongoing, I know where it's from. It's going to be from a local farm, not only because of the fact that the animals are living in better conditions, but again, one of the most disgusting parts of the documentary was the farm fish salmon. Like, you eat salmon for the omega-3s and the anti-inflammatory benefits of that, the essential fats you need, you can only get from your diet. But because of the way that they're farming these salmon, all right, not only are they bleaching them to get the appropriate color, dyeing them for your health, which is terrible for your health, but they end up being so high in omega-6 that's the fatty acid you want to watch, because that's the one that inflames your fucking body. So now, I mean, why am I eating the salmon then? Why am I eating the salmon if it's going to give me omega-6s? And by the way, the same thing happens with the beef. If cows are grass-fed, they actually have a natural source of omega-3 in them as well. But because of big meat, they're corn-fed, and these types of things nowadays are very inflammatory foods for your system. So it's not just the beef, beyond the fact that here's what you can't argue this. Okay. The beef processing it's fucking destroying the planet. That's what we can't argue with. It is what it is. It's destroying the planet because of the methane. I can't argue with science.
Again, some people are so fucking obsessed with denying that climate change exists. Fuck climate change. Don't you want the earth to just be nice? Like they're raising the Amazon. You know what I mean? Like, even if you don't believe in the, climate stuff, don't you want your water, your drinking water, to be clean? Don't you want us to still have like fucking jungles, right? Like, don't you want to preserve this beautiful planet we're on? That was a concept that used to be across political spectrums. Some of our, most famous Republican presidents were actually into conserving the environment, right? Our public park systems and all that stuff. We have a beautiful planet, we don't want to just raise it all and just have grass everywhere. I'm
not trying to go to Mars. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to Mars. Okay, Elon, it's all yours, my friend. You can have it. So, obviously we have to make some serious changes. And again, what it's going to take is, as it always does, is these ridiculous storms, these crazy changes. We hope something happens. But again, what can we control? You can make sure that if you are going to eat meat and animal products, just choose the ones that don't support these big profiteering reptilian corporate executives just trying to squeeze out as much profit as possible and use the cheapest, most disgusting ingredients that infiltrate the food supply. I'm not saying that occasionally when we go to restaurants again, when maybe we get a hold on this and that type of thing, but at the same time too, it's like, you know what, you start to feel so good and you're saving so much money, because the reality is restaurants suck. They suck today. The service is shitty. The food is getting less and less tasty by the day, in my opinion. They have to have their own reckoning of how they're going to make that business model work and their food suppliers work. While they figure it out, all I can do is make sure what I bring into my home is as clean as possible and as I can find as close as possible to the source of that. But I certainly, from a health standpoint, I think it's inarguable in a lot of the recent stuff that at least cutting down on as much animal-based stuff as you can. We don't want to have people change their cultural joy in connection with food, but as I you said too, maybe whenever you get to a point, if you do want to reintroduce animal protein into your diet, you're going to treat it as more of like a accoutrement versus the main dish, right? Because the reality is that it's never going to be a food that is going to do well with you in large amounts. And by the way, I don't think any of us do well with it in large amounts, especially as we get older.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the thing with factory farming in general, is it is, in all kinds of cultures that have meat, it was often the case that meat was, a delicacy or a treat or something you had in very small amounts. It's work to get access to meat, right? Like if there weren't factory farms, you either have to have your own cattle or you have to hunt, right? Like, so it is a high reward food. And what happened is now we've eliminated the work for it. So we can just shovel it into our faces. So I'm not saying just because I'm going mainly plant-based that other people need to do that. But I think that we've kind of like, especially in the fitness world, because animal protein is a dense protein source. You don't even really, that's the funny thing, you don't need that much. Like if you really look at what you get in a 2 or 4 ounce piece of meat, most people, that is more than plenty, right? That's a lot.
If you have cards of any animal protein is like 30 grams of protein, which is, by the way, it's all complete protein too. Again, like these are the things, and this is where I think vegans and vegetarians and plant-based lose people is when look, you can't, I'm from Wisconsin, okay? If you go to, I went to a Thanksgiving once where they're literally eating raw beef as the appetizer. It's on the table, raw beef, okay? You go to these people and you tell them and try to shame them and guilt them and make them feel like they're disgusting, despicable, stupid people. What are they going to do? They're going to double down. It's a human thing, right? Like to double down. You insult someone, there's going to be less acceptance to innovation or improvement or evolution. So that's not the right approach. And also don't say that plant-based protein is better than animal-based protein, because it's not. It takes a lot more plant protein. You got to mix at least 3 different sources, and you got to have more grams of it total to come even close to what animal protein can provide. But, and by the way, plant-based stuff, like, and that's the other piece of it too. It's like, my opinion is, because they're going the route of making all this fake stuff, and it's valiant, right? How you're trying to have, if you are truly trying to improve the environment and give people tastier, healthier, aesthetic alternatives that make it easier to get off of meat and off of animal stuff, great. But also we have found that some of the stuff is not as environmentally friendly as possible. And it's like, well, do you want to eat fake meat, or maybe just don't eat the meat? You know what I mean? Like I'm more of the mindset, like, do you want fake cheese? Do you want fake meats? Do you want to go that route? I guess you can. But ultimately, if you can't get it in its proper form, like that's kind of how I'm looking at it. If I can't have beef that is grass-fed and locally sourced, I'm just not going to have beef in this particular instance, and I'll find another way to get my protein. Not only because it's better for me, it's going to be better, obviously, for you if you ever incorporate it back in because of the issues you have with the beef or whatever else. But it is better for the environment. It's also beef, even beef cheaply produced through big meat, it's expensive as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, it now that I'm eating a lot of beans, which is, I'm not Brazilian, by the way, I'm Puerto Rican for those who don't know, but that is a huge cultural food for me. Like, you have rice and beans with every meal, and I'm going back to that. But what is astonishing to me is when I'm going to grocery shop, if you're trying to cut on costs, holy crap, can you get a lot of beans for cheap versus any sort of animal protein source, but especially beef. So it is a great way to cut down costs and to supplement your protein, right? Maybe you still have the meat that you're having, but you just have a little less and supplement it with a cheaper protein source too. Because again, it's like, I think that's the thing too, with people that push plant-based, it's like, we all have to go plant-based. And really, I think a lot of it is just if everyone does a little bit less of something of beef, the issue is that we're just having it in huge quantities and it's just not sustainable versus, if everyone does their part, and I know that's hard, right? Because we see what happens when we ask people to do their part. It gets really, especially in this environment, everything's like a fight. Everything's like, I'm on this side and I'm on this side. And there's very little, hey, maybe everyone gives and takes a little bit. Like, I don't know what's happened, but it feels like everyone wants to just take a stance. and it's got to be a hard line stance.
Yeah,
but
it's like, people, get rid of the fucking dogma. You don't have to call yourself anything. Why do we have to put ourselves in these boxes? Just make good, smart choices. Let's just look at this from the standpoint of money, all right? The economy. No one feels good about the economy. Nobody feels good about the world right now. The inflation, the food prices. You mentioned, so when I go to Aldi's, I can get a can of black beans for 89 cents. The cheapest available form of, and again, I don't know if I can even trust it, but of grass-fed ground beef at Aldi's on sale is $6. We're talking 600+% the price. Now, I've got to take those beans, I got to combine it with rice, maybe some potato, and then I got to have a pretty large amount of that to get to a complete plant protein source. But I don't have any fear of the bad stuff in the beef or the cholesterol in the beef. And again, the cost savings are off the fucking charts. You look at this as an opportunity to give yourself better outcomes and really start saving some money, and then let the beef be a treat. You know, don't let maybe the beef just can't be, I don't think, by the way, I don't think it can be. I don't think the beef can be our main food source or protein source ongoing. It just, in terms of the impact on the environment, the cost of it. And by the way, I also look at it as saying, fuck you to big meat. I love beef. Okay. There's nothing like a steak. If you ask, it's Last Supper for Uncle Baby Biscuits, it's going to be steak and potatoes with a green on the side. All right. Maybe some ice cream for dessert, or maybe a biscuit. It's like, it's funny if the guy whose last name is Biscuits, I don't talk enough about actually eating biscuits, but there would be biscuit involved with some butter. So again, I'm not trying to demonize all that stuff, but I don't want my money going to those pieces of shit lizard men. Okay. Because they're going to keep doing what they do to our health and to our pocketbook. You got to make them suffer, cut them off. Okay. And yes, it's going to be harder. You might have to go to farmers markets. You might have to go online and research and find a farm and maybe get a freezer and buy a bunch of good, sustainably produced meats that you can stock at home. That's actually, I think, the route we're going to go. We got to clear out some garage space, get a freezer, and we got to go out and we got to know exactly where this meat is coming from ongoing. So
also, and just in general, right? Even just vegetables and stuff like that. You just, you're supporting, again, I think we're seeing this more and more. Big businesses are just eating up every industry, right? So just doing your part to keep your community thriving and, going not just for the beef, but, getting better quality. Like if you go to a farmer's market, if you can do so, unfortunately, some people live in food deserts, but if you can go to a farmer's market, you get you meet the people that are fucking growing this stuff, and it's so fresh, and you get to hand pick it and they can help you. And a lot of times you can get good deals at the farmer's market. I know people think, oh, it's so expensive, but again, you're cutting out the middleman. So like all things, there's more work involved. You can't just the farmer's market isn't usually open 24/7 where you can just go. You have to make the time to go, but you'll probably find that you're feeling good about going there and selecting things there.
Approach it as saving you money, improving your health, and bankrupting these corrupt, disgusting executives. I think, to me, that's when it's kind of framed that way. And again, that's why I look at what you're going through in some ways as a blessing, because it's forcing changes that we know we probably should make anyway. And it's unfortunate that we have to get to that point sometimes, but it also is human nature. And again, this isn't about even necessarily what's right. I just think it's what's necessary. It's what's necessary. It's what's sustainable. And but again, I like many of you, I have been very turned off by the approach that I think a lot of vegetarian, vegan, plant-based have gone about. Again, I just don't think the shaming approach is the right approach. But I do think educating, and that's what I will say about this series too. There was a little fear-mongering, sure, but ultimately they just gave you visuals of the way you're supposed to ranch cattle and the way that big meat ranchers cattle, and you just see these visuals and you see these green open pastures and I guess what appears to be happier cows, which is always that argument too. It's they're still going to be slaughtered, so I guess it's better to be happy slaughtered. Okay, that argument never made real sense to me. Again, whether you believe in killing an animal or not, or the circle of life or not, that's a separate thing. But ultimately, the ones in the other piece that are literally they're stacked together, just nonstop eating omega-6 laden corns. There's shit everywhere. Everything is brown, like hazy, smoky, and disgusting. And again, you are what you eat. You are what you eat. So I think the series, you got to watch it.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
I thought again, a lot of these often, like, for example, we haven't watched Cowspiracy yet because many of these feel just like very one-sided propaganda pieces. And I'm sure there are people that'll feel that way about this. There might be some farmers who are like, whoa, my farm's not like that. Because I know there are some, they don't all operate identically. But what I did like about what they did was with the studies, they didn't try to act like miracles were performed. Which you often see. It's like this person did this diet and everything changed and it's the most perfect thing. And this person did the other diet and they're going to die tomorrow, right? Like there were some things that the animal-based eaters benefited, from, again, mainly being able to gain lean mass faster and more efficiently from a very small sample size that we saw. And there were certain things that were tough for the vegetarians or the plant-based people, particularly like the brothers that were really lean, the two brothers, twins that were going to be nurses, and they were like $1.35 each. I mean, these guys were already shredded coming into the experiment. They have a hard time eating enough, right? So there is a challenge when you eat plant-based. If you're a person that's a hard gainer, you're going to have to eat a lot more food.
It looks like I'm naked right now wearing an apron with the dog.
I know.
Right by my crotch. Pretty good. This is a good YouTube thumbnail, by the way.
She's like, enough talking. Take me out.
She wants to go on her midday walk. Almost, Molly. Give me a second.
So I felt like they were even-handed. They even showed that they did a cognitive test, and those had no outcomes in 8 weeks. And I appreciate the honesty, because typically on TV, they want to edit things, and everything has to be exciting, and everything has to have a conclusion. And they were just like, honestly, even though long-term studies show that XYZ, the 8 weeks just wasn't enough to show any cognitive improvements, because none of these people had cognitive deficiencies to begin with. There wasn't anyone walking in here with issues of cognition. So they're not going to have that like beginner's luck or whatever, or have an instant. So they were honest. It was like not an exciting development. They're like, yeah, in 8 weeks, they were both the same. Nothing really happened. So I appreciated allowing it to be a little bit dull for the sake of honesty and just being, pretty transparent with the results that they were having. That wasn't dogmatic. It was just like, yeah.
We can't be the type of people that believe everything from the last person we spoke to the last thing we watched, for sure. But again, I think I will say, of all the things I've seen like this, it was a little less political propaganda type stuff and more just about discovery and just like conversation, which is dialogue. That's what we need. And again, like, there are plenty of ways to experiment with meaty textured food, whether it be mushrooms or, unfortunately for you, cashews, but that type of thing. And the other interesting thing too, if you want to lose weight, it's almost like based on the what you'll see here, like the plant-based diet approach is the best, though the people that actually lost muscle mass were typically in the plant-based diet. So you're losing what looks to be a faster rate of muscle on a plant-based diet in some cases, because of the things we discussed, because it's actually really like, this is the thing, like, don't make plant-based eating out to be easy. You basically can't go and eat anywhere. Okay. And then you got to now completely find different food sources. It's really tough. And then even if you can find the right foods, it's not cheap, because again, like, this stuff isn't subsidized or be able to scale the way that meat is, because these are new industries. And then on top of that, it's really difficult to get enough calories and macros comparatively on a plant-based diet, because you need to eat so much more food. People actually get full faster because it's more fibrous, more food volume, and then it actually is harder to get calories in. No one that's trying to gain weight would ever go on a plant-based diet.
I have to say though, so in full transparency, a great example was yesterday. I had trouble fitting in. I wanted to make these, like, they were delicious actually, these like stuffed potato pancakes, I guess you could call them. And I struggled to get enough protein in my dinner because I could only put so many beans in these little potato things without eating like 10 pounds of potatoes, right? But I also, what I love about this is I have not been watching my intake at all. I don't have to. Like, I didn't go into this for for weight loss, that was not even a thought. I'm at that age where, of course, I want to look good, but my vanity is like fifth on the list of things that are important to me. But in such a short amount of time and without having to count calories or portions, I've already like, it's astonishing to me how much slimmer I've gotten in such a short period of time on eating plant-based without having to watch my carbs or count. Because again, for me personally, that's never been a good strategy. I'm not like, again, like a person of that really thrives or has a really maintained structure. And so, you know, if I have to count or weigh or measure, that's just not sustainable. I can do that for a short period and then it's going to fall to the wayside. So I've just been eating to satisfaction or to fullness, and the body is just responding to that. So that really works for me as well as an individual.
Yeah. And I would say other interesting results to that too was that the sexual drive or stimulation of people went up on a plant-based diet. And again, the exact reasons, whether it be, you know, better just overall blood flow and circulation, or just, you know, the fact that heavy processed meat diet, you know, clogs up your arteries, maybe just messes with blood flow and stuff like that. But also, by the way, too, you know, people that are on heavy meat-based stuff, you know, high amounts of belly fat, that's also very bad for sex drive as well.
That verdict surprised me because I've often associated, you know, again, high animal fats with, you know, hormone production like testosterone, but not just that. I think there's something, you know, very, what's the word I'm looking for, but, you know, decadent about those foods. And to me, they make me assume that people who consume them, I'm not saying someone who consumes them to the point where they're like 400 pounds, but someone who just regularly consumes them, you know, is just being filled with that, I don't know, that like decadence of meat and cheese, and that it's going to drive your sexuality or whatever.
That's why, again, like, it's so individual too, because different bodies will respond to like someone like me, especially who uses kind of a modified fasting routine, is very controlled with his carbohydrate intake, which makes him very insulin sensitive, so that very little amounts of carbohydrate are needed for me to do what I need to do, or have like people that are insulin resistant, their body doesn't even respond to it, right? Or are doing more resistance training or have more muscle mass generally, like, and actually, like, for someone like me who has a good you struggle digestively. I digest pretty well, but even then, I don't even digest like I used to at 41, like I'm younger. So people don't talk about this either. We have X number of joint cycles, X number of heartbeats, right? Well, we also have, I believe, X number of digestions. And there's no denying that animal-based products are really taxing on the digestive system. And if you're digestively slow, and constantly backing down the digestive system, that's going to have a lot of negative consequences. We want to be later in life so digestively challenged, right? And especially for people like my audience, you know, men that were athletes and like told to eat 6-8 times a day to get big, and like we were never supposed to eat 6-8 times a day. I mean, we knew, like, just from all the farting and pooping how bad that was. Like, our body was like rejecting all that food. So that's not sustainable, right? And so again, like, I think it's worth the watch. And you know, ultimately, my biggest takeaway was I can still make some improvements with finding more plant-based protein sources, treating maybe meat in general, especially if I can't find it properly, as something that I just won't have, or I'll treat more as, you know, I'll cut the portion down a bit, maybe minimize the frequency during the week. And again, you know, just continue to try to improve and be open to improvement. But again, I'm not going to like use this to become, the plant-based muscle guy. Like, I'm not trying to avoid the dogma with this. Just look at it as it is and find ways you can improve your own health, your life, cut costs, and cut off these profiteers. I don't give a shit about you or me. All they care about is their bottom line, and that does not involve our health. So these are the obvious takeaways. No dogma, no politics. Just be smart about it. And sure, if it can benefit the environment, like, I like the earth. I don't want to go anywhere else.
It's a great place.
Yeah. It's like, what these people like, fuck the earth. What's wrong with you people? You know, like, it's one thing to like, not want to help the planet, but it's also one thing to like want to actively hurt it. Like that's next level. That's sociopathic.
Yeah, it's a great place. Like, it gives us everything we need. We were designed for each other. And again, whether or not you believe in certain things, I gotta believe you want like your air to be clean and your water to be clean, and for, you know, the beauty that it has to stay here. Like, I just don't understand how anyone could be against that.
Well, again, it is what it is.
No, I mean, I don't think they are. I think what happens is they're more, again, people get into camps and it becomes part of, well, if I concede to that, then I feel I have to concede to these other things. You know, again, it's just too much is wrapped into things that should be so simple for us to agree on.
And by the way, here's what I want to close out with before I let you close out your side of this. This is why I don't like talking about diet, because you've got to figure that out for yourself. You've got to try different foods, see how you respond. How do you feel? How are your workouts? How do you feel at your work day? What's your mood like? How are you sleeping? What's your body fat look like? All right. Use this as inspiration to find out your diet that works for you, and that involves trying new foods you haven't tried before and or have given enough of a chance because of the propaganda that you're going to lose all your gains and all your muscle. You know, the reality is most of this is genetic. The amount of muscle you have, like the ability to build it, maintain it, it has a lot to do with lifestyle and genetics. And the reality is, you eating more plant-based options, for the average person, it's not going to affect your ability to build muscle in a way. Like, again, like I said, if we're talking about like a bodybuilder that's going to step on stage beyond the drugs and all the stuff that those guys typically take, there's no denying animal protein is probably going to be an edge to those guys or gals if they're going that route. But for Joe, Jane, you're
going to see a GI Joe.
Yeah, GI Joe actually probably needs.
No, he probably needs little animal.
Yeah. But that's where plant-based propaganda will say, no, you can do this with. It's just going to take 10 pounds of plant protein.
You're going to have a bucket of beans with every meal.
So again, it's much less about right or wrong. I think it's more about practicality. I think it's all about sustainability, and just be open-minded to just trying some new things and having fun with that versus feeling like you're in one camp or the other or that type of thing. That's really what it is. Like, the fact that there's so much dogma around this stuff is just disgusting to me. I hate dogma. I've always hated it. I don't like being a part of it. I don't like calling any. That's why I don't like to say intermittent fasting. It's like, no, I don't want to call it that.
Everything has to be. I think maybe it's because humans are designed to want to categorize things. It makes it easier to comprehend, and people don't want complicated answers. But yeah, I'm the same way. I feel like, especially now with the way the rate of information is conveyed, we keep shrinking things into smaller and smaller boxes and completely losing nuance and gray area. And it's like, you're either for this or you're against this. You're either this or you're that. You know, you're either plant-based or you're a carnivore, and we've got to battle each other. You know, it's just like, come on, like, chill the fuck out, people, and just figure shit out. Just take out all the noise and just look at things for what they are on their face. And then again, figure it out for yourself.
Yes. And by the way, and this is part of it too, you make it for a household, because this is the practicality for most people. They have a partner and or family and kids and stuff like that. So part of diet is compromise as well. So the reality is now, because of the trajectory you're on, I'm going to have to be more plant-based because, we have to eat separate things. So within this house, you've got two people that actually respond to foods in very different ways. So we can't be on the same diet. You can't be on my diet, but I could be more on yours.
You had a big ass potato. You had 2 potato pancakes. You took my little one yesterday.
So that is a point for the plant side, is that very few people, more people are likely to struggle health-wise on an animal-based diet because of the processing involved with that and the sources of that. Whereas the reality is more people are likely to be able to go on a plant-based diet to support their partner or their kids. Because again, it's less costly, and they typically have better overall health outcomes. We're not talking about the size of your biceps here. We're talking about health, general health. I think that one thing this series pointed out in a pretty effective way is that better overall health comes, and more overall checks and pros are on the sides of a diet that has more plant-based sources in it.
And I will say, it's easy to add things to the plant-based stuff, meaning like a good example is yesterday, I made my thing, you had like your chicken or whatever. And basically it's just like, I made what were some sides for you. So it didn't stop you from eating the thing you wanted to eat. It just became a part of your meal where it was my whole meal for the most part. So there's ways to go about it. If you don't want to eat plant-based and you're trying to force yourself to, then yeah, it'll be miserable. So again, you got to,
because I added in one of your sides, I ended up eating half of the chicken I normally would have eaten. So again, I'm just shifting things around in the plate. I don't have to be so extreme about it. But I still got plenty of protein. You know what I mean? Like I don't need 100 grams of protein at a meal is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Which is easier to get than you think. It's easier to get than you think, especially if you're a big guy.
It is. So I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. Definitely check it out. It's intriguing. It's quick, easy viewing, especially like while watching. Not that I'm trying to encourage people to watch TV while eating, but that's what we do. We have TV.
Oh, I love it. I know it sounds good for you, but but I love being multi-stimulated. Like, you know how my theory on that.
This is why I think we're the right people to give this message. We're just trash people.
Yeah, we're garbage.
Eating on TV trays.
Garbage.
Yeah,
we just learned how to use a planner yesterday.
Yeah, it's like this guy's 41 and he just started scheduling events.
You like me write plans.
Hope you guys enjoyed this. We gave you about 2 hours of your time. I know it's a lot to ask, but can you give me a second and click the 5-star? Can you give me 10 seconds? Click the 5-star and say BJ Podcast. Good. That helps us get this message out to more good people like you. By the way, on iTunes, if you have a question for the show that I might cover in a future episode, give the 5-star, say BJ Podcast. Good. Ask your question. I'll consider future episodes as well to incentivize you. On YouTube, like, share, subscribe. I guess, you can also let us know if you watch this series. What'd you think about it? What was your general reaction to it? Good, bad, and the ugly. I'm not saying it's perfect. It certainly isn't, but I do think it was more thought-provoking and less propaganda than other options out there. So I'm curious what you think. Drop a comment below. And thanks for listening. Naomi, you've got to check out Naomi's podcast, the Twisted Mirror Podcast, on iTunes and Spotify. And again, I'll drop her YouTube channel link as well, because we want to, one of our goals as a joint business here too, I want to get her a more video medium version of her show coming to YouTube soon. So be sure to check that out. Naomi, you want to lead us out here? I let us in, you lead us out, where they can learn more about you, and also just closing thoughts. Yeah.
So I don't think I have any more thoughts. I think I've said everything I have to say about the topic at hand. But again, I'm still figuring out stuff for myself. I'm not trying to tell you exactly what to do, but I thought it would be a good time to share my experience, because a lot of people are just normal people like me, trying to get their shit done and trying to be healthy and sure look good. But I'm not trying to be the buffest or have the biggest ass or abs or anything like that, where I think a lot of fitness is gravitated towards, because everything's so visual now. Everything's about aesthetic. And I think in our generation too, we're getting at that age where we have to tighten things up. We can't get away with as much as we used to. So I hope that just sharing this experience, just if you're maybe going through something, that you can maybe take a little ownership of it, hopefully help yourself get through it a little easier. Twisted Mirror. It is, yes, on iTunes, Spotify, but it's also pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. I would say, I like to describe it as like Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock had a Puerto Rican baby. It is almost all original stories written by me. There is some what I call true horror, which is like stranger than fiction, real stuff. But I still kind of script it narratively as a story. It's sonically immersive, so you put in your earphones and you get sound effects that go with it. Give it a listen. It's good shit. I mean, I'm not going to be humble about it. It's good shit. And you can see it in the ratings. So give it a listen. And they're not all gore, horror necessarily. Again, I'm into thought-provoking stuff. I like to leave things, a lot of the stuff we consume, even the type of horror we consume, is the kind that we like to have a conversation about afterwards. Because there's just more to it than just the screams. That's just what we like to do. And that's what I like to consume. And that's the kind of stuff that I write. So go give it a listen. And hopefully soon I'll be here as well.
Can't wait. Thank you so much for your time today. It's always, I do a lot of these solo, and I think people don't realize, like, it's not fun to do these episodes solo. So it's always great to have not only someone come on, but someone that you love and enjoy to share a story that in her own experience and wisdom to help our listeners and our viewers as well. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you, Naomi. My better half, always has been. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and take care. On behalf of Uncle Baby Biscuits, we'll see you next time. Peace.